Good day, everyone! Welcome to our English class. Today, we are going to talk about influences of history, culture, environment, and other factors in literary selection department. Are you ready to listen? Then, let's begin. First, do you remember these characters? I'm sure you do. Maybe you have met them when you were a kid, or you have just met them today. Do you know that these stories were influenced by different factors? That's what we are going to discuss today. There are various influences or factors in literary selection. The first one, the cultural influence. It may be demonstrated through human behavior, vocabulary or language used, human emotions or perspectives, and material items. For example, in the story How My Brother Leon Brought Home a Wife by Manuel E. Argilia. Let's talk about the author, Manuel Argilia. Most of his stories depict life in Barrio Naglacan, La Union, where he was born. His bond with his birthplace, forged by his dealings with the Pisay folk, remained strong even after he moved to Manila. Now, these are some ideas in the story which reflect cultural influence. First, the recollection of an afternoon adventure in the barrio with the brothers Pensay. It is a story of a man introducing his city-born wife to his more provincial family. Lastly, the main idea in the story is Maria is being tested with Leon's family, especially his father, if she will be able to live a simple life in province away from the city. The next factor is history, a branch of knowledge that records and explains past events. It is connected with studying or representing things from the past. It is about what has happened in the life or development of a people, country, institution, etc. The influence of history can be found in the poem March of Death by Bienvenido and Santos. The author, Mr. Santos, is a scholar of the Philippine Commonwealth government. When war in the Pacific came to the Philippines, he feared he would never see his family again, leading to a transformation in his sense of national consciousness and identity. Crisis changed the nature of his writing into a less carefree style to one mixing laughter and pain. It has the influence of history as it expresses the suffering of many Filipinos in Bataan Death March by the time of Japanese occupation. Also, it shows sympathy and motivation. Next, we have the environment, the circumstance, object, or condition by which one is surrounded, aggregate of social and cultural conditions that influence the life of an individual or community. The environment can facilitate or discourage interactions among people. It can influence people's behavior, mood, and motivation to act. The story New Yorker in Tondo by Marcelino Agana Jr. shows how the environment influenced the literary selection. The author, Mr. Agana, was a playwright in 1958 who wrote one of the more popular Filipino comedies that have been produced many times through the years. The story is about a girl who grew in Tondo and went to New York for a year. She was able to adopt the life of New York with a short span of time. New York was a free and deliberated country, comprised of so many different eccentric neighborhoods. She changed everything about her, the way she dressed, she talked and mingled with others, she even tried to change everything about her mother. It describes what kind of life was there in Tondo and how was it living in New York. Lastly, we have the influence of economics, giving good value or return in relation to the money, time, or effort expended. The story of Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan is a good example of a literary selection that portrays the influence of economics. Let's get to know more about the author. He spent most of his youth in the countryside as a farmer. It is during his youth that he and his family were economically impoverished by the rich and political elite, which would become one of the main themes of his writing. He left for America at the age of 17 in the hope of finding salvation from the economic depression of his home. In 1936, Bulosan suffered from tuberculosis and underwent 3 operations. The story depicts the typical Filipino family. It has the characteristics of being simple, poor, and hardworking. In this story, the rich family and the poor family are having conflict with each other. The rich man in the story was very selfish and does not want to socialize with the poor people. He ended up being sick because he only cares about his wealth and money. Now, we're done with our lesson. Let's try this activity. Get a piece of paper and let's answer. Are you ready? I know you can do this. Identify the literary influences in the following excerpts. Number 1. When I was 4, I lived with my mothers and brothers and sisters in a small town on the island of Luzon where father has a small farm. Number 2. The rich man's children became thin and anemic, pale and sad. The rich man started to cough at night. Then he coughed day and night. His wife began coughing too. Then the children started to cough one after the other. At night, their coughing sounded like the barking of a herd of seals. And for number 3, father's farm had been destroyed in 1918 by one of our sudden Philippine floods. So for several years afterward, we all lived in the town, though we preferred living in the country. Congratulations for completing this lesson. Thank you also for watching and for listening. I will see you again. This is your Maestra Mela, always at your service.